So if you could be here around 9, that would be great. Okay?
Well, listen here.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Day Fiancé K. I'm Mr. O, and today, Miss H and I will be discussing Season 3, Episode 5 of The Other Way. In this episode, Stephen and Alina hitchhike to an immigration lawyer, Sumit brings some new information to his parents, Corey comes clean to Raul, dude, Ellie and Victor survey the damage of Providencia, Ari takes a cold, holy shower, and Armando sits down with his dad for a man-to-man talk. As always, we'll end with our Students of the Week, Class Dunces, and Life Lessons. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe. And if you also watch Love After Lockup, you should listen to our other podcast, Love After Lockup K. All right, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy.
Hello, Mr. O.
Hello, Miss H.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Getting through for my first few, full weeks of school. They ramp us up.
And breaking up fights.
Breaking up fights. That's right. I had to do that today for the first time. It's not really a school year until you have to break up a fight.
Oh, gosh. Well, then I've had no school years. You've had more than your fair share of school years.
It was going on for a while. I was like, I feel like there's something going on in the hallway. And went outside and was like, oh, it's a fight. Let me step in between these two girls and figure this out. But, that's just the way it is in my school. It's crazy how much different schools can be.
Right. Well, who did we have that was fighting this week?
Oh, you know what? We actually didn't have many fights.
Right?
We had confrontations, right? I mean, people who had to say things to people that they were looking for, like Jenny and Sumit. Well, specifically Sumit. So Jenny and Sumit are visiting a local market because Jenny wants to have her own chanting beads. She says she doesn't want to convert to the Hare Krishna faith, but she enjoyed the meditation aspect of the whole thing, and she's hoping that it's gonna help with the whole stress of the situation she's in right now. Stress like when we flash back to the time from last season when Sumit's parents came over to try to get them to break up again. She's very upset and still jumps up and she's still upset that he still jumps up and goes to every single family event, even that his parents ask him to, and even though Jenny's not invited to any of them, so she ends up just having to sit in the house by herself. She wants him to tell them, no, I won't go to these events unless you invite Jenny. This prompts Sumit to tell Jenny that, well, about family events, my sister-in-law Shri is pregnant, and there's going to be a family event about that, of course, you're not invited to. So then we get to see Amit, which is Sumit's brother, and Shri going to the temple for a ceremony. It's like ceremony to ask for blessings for the pregnancy and the health of the baby and things like that. So Sumit is coming to the ceremony later after the inside the temple part is over. And his mom seems disappointed that, this isn't really the proper order of things. We should have been here for Sumit's child first. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of see him get into the cab. And he says that his plan when he gets there is to tell his family that he and Jenny are engaged so that she should be invited to these things. So outside the temple, they congratulate Shri, who expresses her condolences about Sumit and his life choices. It's like, yikes. But soon Sumit shows up, and Shri even touches his feet, and Amit comments on his weight loss. But then he gets serious and gets right to it. He wants Jenny to be allowed to come to stuff like this. Shri and Amit say that she's welcome to come as a friend, but not as a family member or, your partner or anything. So his parents kind of go back into, well, people will say mode, and saying that if they accept Sumit and his relationship with Jenny, they'll be cut off from society. And they won't even be able to get sugar from their neighbors and stuff. Or that nobody would call 911 on if they've had a heart attack. It seems to be what the implication that they got to. So Sumit tells them that actually he and Jenny are engaged, which means that officially she should be part of these celebrations. At this point, his mom just sheds a tear, says nothing, and walks away. Amit and Shri start to talk about it with him, and his dad just get up and walks away too. So they more or less tell him that they don't want any of this negativity around their new child. So after we saw this whole family event, should Jenny even want to be invited to these things?
I don't know. I think that, what was wrong with before when they just thought that, you know, it was okay for Jenny to come by as a friend, right? And I think, like, in the best case scenario for them would have been she should have come around as a friend and hoped that they realized she was sticking around for good and that they were having those kind of interactions with her. Now, I know there was kind of a couple things where, you know, it isn't going to work out exactly that way. Because one, as we recall, Jenny was living with them. So it's not like Sumit's parents didn't really know her. In fact, Sumit's mom was like apparently besties with Jenny before she knew what was going on. So at this point, I do kind of feel like it was a lost cause. And second of all, I was going to say, Jenny doesn't exactly have the most winning personality. Like, she's not someone that you can get these people in a room and, like, win them over.
Yeah, she's going to charm them. Exactly. Sure. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I mean, at this point, how can it go back to, oh, she's invited as a friend? It made sense before they knew everything was going on. But now it's like, yes, this is the friend that I live with and sleep with all the time. Like, of course, my friend, as everyone has the friend that they do that with. And, you know, it's like she can't be a friend now. Like, we know what their relationship is.
Well, that ship has sailed, right? But then, yeah, but even with the friend, I think the best case scenario for them, like, realistically, is them just tolerating her being there.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Why would does she even want to be there if it's all just a bunch of people, like, tight-lippedly, you know, accepting her presence and, like, nobody's enjoying having a good time or doing anything? Like, well, it seems weird that that's what she wants, because what she really wants isn't going to happen, and she has to accept that too.
You know, yeah, what she really wants is for them to accept her. But I think, like, a step down from that is I'm really getting the impression that Jenny just does not want to be left alone at all. Right?
True.
I think, like, for her, the reason why she wants to be included is so she doesn't have to be by herself. And then that also just kind of makes me feel like, Jenny, man, like, you're 60-something years old. Like, how are you not okay with being by yourself every once in a while?
Right.
I cherish those times.
I know you do very much.
I do.
But, like, and I get it. It's I don't know how you get that far in life. And being kind of where you are in life, you know, she's been single for a long time.
Yeah, being single is not a new thing for her. I don't understand why she's, like, freaking out anytime she, like, for a visa run, like, what, that lasts 2 days and she can't be away from Sumit for 2 days? She can't be away from this family celebration for, like, a day?
Yeah,
it's oh my gosh.
my impression is I think she's still not comfortable in India or anywhere else, and she feels like she needs Sumit there to, like, guide her along. Like, I don't know what she's afraid of, because she doesn't have to leave the house.
Do alone time at the house.
Yeah, she doesn't have to leave it. I get more for the visa runs than for just chill at the house and, I don't know, read a book or something. Like, I mean, I feel like everybody has their routines of, oh, this is my day and I'm alone by myself and I'm going to do my thing. Right. I hate, and it's unfortunate though, because I think we've also been in this situation where not necessarily that I had to be with somebody all the time, but it was a day I just didn't really feel like being by myself, and you're kind of stuck being by yourself, and that really sucks. And that really sucks.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I definitely go through that quite a bit. I think it's just for me, if I really think about it, it's really more so the lack of being able to control elements of your life, right?
Yes.
So when you want to be by yourself, you can't control that. When you want to have company, you can't control that. And so it just makes you feel helpless.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if it's dependent on someone else.
Right. I also think Sumit's probably an awful communicator, and she's like, you leave, and I have no idea when you're coming back, or if you're coming back. Maybe you'll come back tomorrow. I don't know what's going on. And that could be also very stressful and nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I think at first I thought, oh, well, Jenny, she just wants to feel included, but she knows how dramatic it would be and how tension driven it would be. And she wouldn't actually want to be there. So, maybe if they just invited her, she would be an adult and choose not to be there, because sometimes this has definitely been the case. I've had friend situations where it's there's been something weird between me and a friend or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then just because of our social circles, Like, it would be something where it'd be weird if I didn't invite them, right? Like, it
Sure.
would be very obvious and probably cause more drama for me not to invite them. So I always invite them. And my thought is, if they don't feel comfortable, like, they won't come. And if they feel comfortable, then maybe I'm making this out to be a bigger deal in my head than it really is.
Yeah. I mean, obviously she's not making this a bigger deal than it really is.
No, it is a big deal, right?
I mean, it's not the case. But I also it's one of those things where I don't know what the parents are expecting to happen either. Right? Like, I feel like they're also sitting here waiting for something that's not going to happen. He's just going to be like, all of a sudden, he's just going to decide, well, you guys are right. This woman I've been with for 9 years, we're just going to end that. That's right. Well, she's gone now. We're done. Like, that's not going to happen either. Like, they have unreasonable expectations too.
Yeah, and at the same time, too, like, his parents have got to realize, like, I don't know, in their world, isn't Sumit kind of like damaged goods? He's, like, divorced. He's already been with this older lady who society rejects, according to them, So it's kind of like, who is going to be partners with him after this?
Yeah, that is kind of crazy, because it seems like it's weird that it's more acceptable that, oh, our divorced son is just shacking up with some old lady for an indeterminate amount of time. That's perfectly socially acceptable for everything to happen. But if you wanted to marry this old lady, no. Now you're shunned from society. We're done with you now. Right? That seems kind of weird. That seems backwards to the way we have it, right?
I think, like, if he's shunned already. So it's like, I don't know. What could you hope for him?
They're not worried about him being shunned. They're worried about if they, like, say the marriage is okay and they accept it, they'll be shunned. Yeah. The parents themselves will be shunned. And they even mention stuff like that. Stuff like, well, if somebody was breaking into my house, nobody would call the police because I'm shunned from society. Right? I know. And because I agree, like, they're not going to marry him off to somebody else.
No.
That's not going to happen. But it's almost like, okay, you're already done, son. It's a matter of us saving our faces.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Jennies, let's talk Corey and Evelin. So Corey is happy that Evelin's family has been told the news of their marriage, at least her sisters at this point. So Corey and Evelin go to Evelin's parents' house where Corey greets Leslie and Lipsy. The sisters are friendly to his face, but they tell Evelin in Spanish that they do not give their blessings. But they want to see their mom's face when she tells them. Evelin and her brothers and sisters and parents gather around so Evelin can tell them the news. She tells them that Corey's visa expired, so a year ago they went to Guayaquil and got married. They tell them that they paid random people on the street $20 to be their witness. Evelin makes it clear that it was just because Corey wanted to stay in the country. Evelin's mom is shocked that Evelin didn't tell her, and she doesn't understand why she kept it a secret and finds it ridiculous that they paid strangers to witness the wedding. Evelin says that she didn't think they would understand since it was only for papers, and Celine, Evelin's mom, is close to tears. She thinks that marriage should not be about papers or obligation. Corey says he wanted a wedding, but Evelin didn't. Evelin didn't feel forced, and she's not sure if she's happy, at least not 100, as she says. Celine makes it clear that she doesn't believe in divorce, and her dad says this is forever. Now that her family knows, Evelin just feels trapped because divorce is no longer an option. Later, Corey goes surfing with Raul, his frenemy, who is always trying to get with Evelin. Corey says that they have moved past that, though. Corey tells Raul that they've been married for a year, and he theorizes that Evelin wanted to keep it a secret so she had like an escape plan if needed. Corey then says a couple months later, after the wedding, she kicks him out and tells him to get out of Ecuador. Corey is trying to drum up the sympathy, saying he was so heartbroken when he went to Peru. He admits it was serious, his relationship with Jenny, and that he met the family and was going to actually move in with her. Raul always thought Corey was like a saint, but the stuff is, as he refers, Venezuelan drama shit. Corey only came back to get his stuff, and he was trapped in Ecuador because of the pandemic, so he just kind of stopped talking to Jenny. He then admits to us in an interview that he actually did sleep with Jenny. Corey doesn't tell Raul that, at least not in front of us, but he does ask for his advice. Raul tells him to break things off with Jenny, actually, not just, ghost her, and come clean to Evelin, the right thing. Raul then, to reinforce this idea of the right thing, threatens to tell Evelin if Corey doesn't. Okay, so why on earth do you think that Corey just decided that ghosting someone was the best way to break up with them now that he got back together with Evelin?
I don't know, dude. I think like it was the dude. Same thing. He was like that annoyed me too. The same reason he says dude after every sentence to Raul, but never to anybody else.
Yeah, bro.
Dude. He's like said it like with such a put on thing. That bothered me first. So I had to say dude a bunch of times first. But I have no idea. He doesn't make any sense. Like he didn't clear up the status that he had with Evelin before shacking up with this woman.
Yeah.
This Jenny, and then came back and did it. It was like, well, I'll just stop talking to her, which is an awful plan. Just
especially if it's escalated to the point of you slept with her, you met her parents, you're moving in together.
Yes. It's like, because it's she's going to come back and she's going to try to get in touch with you again. Like,
right. I mean, let's be clear. Ghosting is never okay. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to say it's to be expected, but it's not like totally uncommon for people to ghost in the beginning stages of dating. I don't even want to say a relationship. In the beginning stages of dating.
And I definitely am like, yes. And that there's definitely a line when it's acceptable versus unacceptable to you. It's like, I don't know.
I said, it's never acceptable. I don't.
Well, I mean, okay, but I mean, is it ghosting if you never met in real life?
Nah. Well, no, but you're not even really dating then, are you? You're
okay,
just
so then
that's
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So there's definitely a short period of time, and it's going to vary for different people, where it's okay to just be like, oh, I just never messaged them back, and it's been like a week now, so
yeah.
Right? And that's fine if it's been like 2 or 3 messages that you've sent to each other.
I kind of see that more as the fade out, you know? And the fade out is more okay. It's more socially acceptable because it's like 2 sides are fading out, right? You just generally message a little less and no one seems to be consistently making an effort to reach out and you just kind of fade out of each other's lives. That is not what this situation is.
No. And that's what I'm saying. So at what point is it, does I mean, clearly he's on the other side of a line of when did it go from being a fade out to a ghosting, right?
Yeah.
And this, I mean, so he's definitely on the ghosting side of a line. If you like met her parents and then you're just like, I just stopped talking to her. Like, did he block her? Did he like mute her on his phone? Like, how did he do that? Like, and what's going on? So it's totally wrong, but definitely wrong, not just on a, a morals and scruples angle, but just on a, how is this going to work with Evelin if you just have this unfinished business dangling out there? It's going to come back and bite you.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't know if it really will because it's like in a different country, but things like this really, it's to me, it's incredibly predictable and annoying because dudes do this shit all the time. It's like the reason why guys ghost is because they want to be able to come back and at least it be an option, and sometimes maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. Right? Maybe that girl will be like, what the fuck? I haven't heard from you in like however long, like get out of here, or they could be like a hey, and you get a hey back. And definitely it's a gamble, but at least there is somewhat of a possibility as opposed to if you just broke things off with them, you have less of a possibility. So I think that's what Corey's doing. He's kind of playing the odds here. He's ghosting Jenny, kind of hoping that if things don't work out with him and Evelin, and let's be real here, it's unstable and unpredictable with Evelin. So he could just kind of go back to Jenny and just be like, oh, I was confused. I didn't know. Or he could even play this because he's clearly lying to people at this point.
Right.
Corey ain't no saint. He could be saying, oh, I got stuck in Ecuador because of the pandemic. And I was stuck there. I didn't want to like disappoint you and make you promises. So I was just going to message you when I could, come back. Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right. I think it was definitely sounds like he was holding on to a backup plan here.
Yeah.
I'm just in it just because I was like, I wasn't thinking like Jenny was gonna like show up and be like, you know, total like Venezuelan telenovela and like, you know, show up at the door with throwing wine in his face,
throw people downstairs. That seems to happen a lot
but
too.
I was like, well, she's gonna message you and Evelyn's gonna see the messages. It's gonna ruin it, like that, because it is unpredictable. But I think he went back, and even when they, you know, got stuck in the pandemic and things were going, he's just like, it's just a matter of time before this like all blows up in my face again.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, he could do it. I don't know. It just seems like, but the other thing that I thought was weird is that he doesn't seem to understand what Evelyn thinks about this relationship, right? Because he still, explaining it to Raul, was like, well, Evelyn thinks it was just a one night thing and, you know, nothing really happened, but it wasn't that. Whereas Evelyn was like, oh yeah, he was going around Peru saying this is his girlfriend. Like, like she definitely is not going to be surprised by, oh yeah, it was more than a one night thing. She was like, well, yeah, I already knew that. And she's definitely not going to be surprised if he says he slept with her, because she'd be like, yeah, I kind of assumed that too.
Yeah, I do think that. But at the same time, I think what really going to go on here is Evelyn is going to use this stuff against him.
Yes.
She is going to keep it in her back pocket. If she's going to use it now, maybe, who knows? Because she already said she's not 100% happy, you know, so maybe she'd use this. Or maybe she wants to get this fancy wedding since they're already married, forcing Corey to spend all this money, punishing him, and then afterward, like, uses it to be like, yeah, you're really not the kind of guy that I really see myself being with. Like, I don't want to be a partner with some lying, cheating, according to her, cheating, you know, because, you know, they're married, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to also hear Evelyn's whole take on this thing. And it actually does make a lot of sense why she tried to keep this under wraps, because as soon as her parents found out that they were married, they were like,
no divorce. That's it. You're stuck.
Yep. No divorce. We don't believe in divorce here. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know what Evelyn's endgame was in telling her parents in the first place then. Telling anyone in her family, because she must know that that's the case. And so has she just accepted that she's stuck with this guy forever?
I guess so, because she's going to go through with this other wedding. And once she goes through with this other wedding, then that's it, right? Then they're going to be on the same boat that she was before, right? I thought the interesting thing was, I mean, I like that. Okay, well, first of all, it was kind of weird that the mom was like, oh, do you feel forced? Were you happy? And then after asking this question was like, doesn't matter. You're stuck with him. No divorce, right? And but I also thought it was really interesting that, you know, again, Corey's terrible, awful Spanish comes to bite him, because I feel like even when she said not 100%, that was sugarcoating it for him, because she told her mom no say, right? She was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? That seems much more harsh than, yeah, not 100%, you know?
Right.
Like, literally, I don't know if I'm happy.
Corey has to know what
it was no say means, it was so easy.
I know, but he has to know that one, right?
Yes.
That one's like basic Spanish 1.
That's
like
9th grade Spanish. Yes, absolutely. Well, it's especially 9th grade Spanish, because that's what they answer all the questions with.
Oh my gosh, I know, right?
No
exactly.
Say. All right. So moving along to, I don't know, other people struggling with languages. Let's go to our buddy Steven. So Steven and Alina are walking around town, and Steven can't believe that they live here now, even though they don't actually live there because they're on a visitor visa for only 3 months. Anyway, Alina is happy that Steven decided to stay in the apartment with her, even though he is still worried about the temptation. They're on the way to see an immigration lawyer to see what they have to do to get married and move to Russia or whatever their plan is. So to get there, Steven is doing what he's done in 5 different countries. Hitchhiking there. Which he does by using broad gestures and literally jumping in front of a car.
Yeah, that is not hitchhiking.
That's
by
like
the way.
Commandeering the car. That's like a carjacking.
Yes.
What is he doing?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sure the Turkish guy was like, oh, it's an American. He must have a gun. Get in the back seat. I'll take you wherever you want to go. Anyway, he eventually finds a ride despite all Alina's misgivings. After some broken translations, they end up where they're going to see Tune Egan, the lawyer. He starts in with all the details. They need documents, Stephen specifically needs documents from the American embassy in Ankara, and they'll have to go to the municipal office and get an official seal before the marriage. Then they have to go back to the Russian consulate with their marriage certificate to start the visa process. Stephen wants to know how long they'll have to wait for the marriage appointment because he thought this was going to be like a quickie Vegas thing. So the lawyer's advice is to get the ball rolling as soon as possible, which seems to freak Stephen out because, he says, well, that's a really big decision. So afterward, I don't know where I wrote that. Afterward, they actually get a cab to go back to the room, and in the cab, they talk it over. Stephen really wishes they had a little bit more time to figure out if they should get married. Because, again, 90 days isn't very much time.
Stupid.
He asked Alina when she thinks she'll be ready to get married, and she's like now? Which prompts him to start like hugging her and trying to cuddle her, which she brushes off with an I'm tired. In an interview, she says that she came to Turkey to marry this guy, and then kind of goes this, waiting for him to show he's more serious about the relationship, which isn't really helped because he literally says in the cab, I think you're a little bit more serious about this than I am. A problem that he attempts to solve by trying to buy watermelon. There's watermelon for sale over here. Maybe let's get some watermelon. So
stupid.
So dumb. So, I mean, so I guess that's the question I had. I'll ask you, and you don't know the answer either, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What was the point of coming to Turkey if not to get married?
I don't know. Like, he said in the interviews before he even went to Turkey that he was going to Turkey to get married to Alina so that way they could move to Russia.
Yes.
And it's just like, the more we go along with their story, it's just like, did you have any intention of marrying this woman? Because it seems like you keep thinking it is a decision to be made. And, this is one of my biggest pet peeves with this franchise altogether. Is you get these people who come over on a fiance visa to begin with, and they're still deciding if this is the person that they want to be with. It's like, shouldn't you have decided that before? Like, what do you think an engagement is? It's a commitment to marry someone.
Yeah, it's to the point where I question how they got the fiance visa. I was like, you had to botch the interview if you're in there being like, hey, we don't really know each other that well. I feel like we need 90 days to better know each other until we get married. I feel like they would just be like, visa denied. Like, no, you are not engaged to this person.
You guys are not a real couple. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. So Stephen, like, I don't know. And then saying, you're more serious than me. It's like, you're the worst. Get out of here.
Yeah. That was the second part that bothered me. The first part that bothered me was
him jumping in front of a car.
Well, okay, the hitchhiking the car. That was okay. So in the middle.
No, that was not hitchhiking. That was him jumping in front of a car to get them to stop.
Yes. And the guy let him in. I guess he was like, you have a camera crew, I guess. I don't know what's going on here.
I know. Like, I would be like, I'm not positively reinforcing this behavior. Get out of here.
No, that's definitely like, I've seen bus drivers do that when kids chase the bus to try to get on it. They're like, step back on the curb and then drive away because they're like, you can't have kids chasing the bus. You can't have kids jumping in front of cars as a way of hitchhiking. Right, because if you let them on the bus, then the next day if they're late for the bus, they're going to chase the bus again.
Do the same thing, sure.
And so you can't have that, right? And it's just, but then he goes, and the thing that drove me nuts was and I guess it's totally a young person thing. Like, you thought of step one, and he literally said like that. And she didn't think ahead of that. So they went to see this lawyer and told them a bunch of stuff that they should have known before they came to Turkey.
Yep.
Like, how do we get married now? And he was like, I was really just focused on getting to Turkey. And I was like, oh my God. And because he even picked the wrong town. He picked a town without an American consulate.
Oh my gosh.
And didn't bring any papers with him.
Dumb.
Like,
yeah. The getting to Turkey part seems easy to me.
It's like super easy.
The advent of the internet,
yes.
It's like, how hard is it to book a flight to Turkey?
I booked a flight to Turkey. I checked and saw the visitor visa requirements and I got the COVID test that I needed to get, and done. Right. I'm done. It's a very easy task. I'm sure I can figure out in 45 minutes, exactly how I could get to Turkey if I needed to get to Turkey.
Oh my gosh, stupid. Yeah, Stephen is quickly, making his way to the bottom of my list.
Very definitely, yes.
All right, let's move on to Ari and Biniyam. So Ari, Biniyam, Avi, and Mimi, the nanny, all go on a walk towards a holy water for healing, as they say. Biniyam says that holy water only works for those that believe. Ari complains about the walk, but she's actually enjoying the scenery part. At the water, they go their separate ways because men and women are separated, and Biniyam prays in the fountain. Ari doesn't know what's going on because no one's explained any of this to her, so she just kind of sticks her face in this water that's shooting out of this pipe, and she just has this pained look on her face, and then she turns around, gets it on her back, and she's just freezing and making uncomfortable faces as this half-naked lady is forcing her back into the water.
Yeah. I think you should specify when you say half naked, that's a literal half naked, like not like, oh, she was wearing underwear. She like didn't have a top on, like no top.
No, she didn't have a top on. Yeah, she was half naked. So, yeah, and just like kind of almost like pushing her into this water that she's kind of trying to get away from. So this whole thing is kind of uncomfortable to watch because she just looks so uncomfortable. And, after this, Biniyam and Ari meet up after both their little dips in the holy water. And Biniyam says it's important for Ari to respect his culture. So it means so much to him that Ari has come. And he hopes that, she will continue to do these things and, participate in their culture. And Ari hopes that Biniyam will see that she really is trying in this relationship. So they had kind of a shorter segment, wasn't a whole lot going on there.
Sure.
But it was kind of interesting to me that Ari seemed to actually kind of go along with something that, she didn't really want to be a part of, because usually, especially when it comes to religious stuff, she seems to very much put her foot down. Like she didn't want Avi to be baptized. She made a big stink about it. It's just a little water on the head. Like, how is this any different?
Right.
But do you think that Ari's attempt at, trying to integrate into this culture is sustainable and genuine?
Yes and no. I would say sustainable, no. Genuine, I think she's giving it her best effort. I just think her best effort's a pretty sad effort.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was literally like, stand under this cold water for like 5 seconds. And she was like,
right.
Like it was the most big ordeal anyone's ever been put through. Like she was just making all those faces going. And it was funny because they contrasted it with, Binny, who just like pop and like had it on his head and like kind of leaned against a rock. It was on his back. It didn't like shiver or shake or do anything. And, and she's just like there, like they were pouring liquid nitrogen on her, like just, oh my God, like she's making her melt. And it was just like, it's one of those. And then at the end, she's like, I hope he recognizes that I'm making such an effort. I was like, it really wasn't much. Like you stood under, you walked up a hill in a beautiful park, stood under this cold water. And she was kind of
complaining about it the whole time.
Complained about it the whole time, stood under this water for 3 seconds and then left. Because the other thing too is, we saw the half naked woman. Biniyam was probably all the way naked, right? That's why they separate the men and the women.
I don't know. It was hard to tell.
Well, he was definitely topless, but that's, obviously not big of a deal. It's just, it looked like they were cutting, the way they were angling the camera was like, let's just cut off right at his lower back and not show anything below that.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense why. But also at the same time, Biniyam was like kind of at the top. It wasn't like he couldn't see into what was going on. Because remember, after she was done, he was just like up the stairs, like at the top of the stairs, kind of waiting for her. So, yeah. Yeah,
it just, I don't know. And part of that is the issue. And I think that's an issue with their relationship is he sees something as like the bare minimum of what we can do. And she sees this huge concession of all the things that I did for you. And he was like, we went to the top of the stairs and the water. Yeah, you let me drip water on our son's head, and you're acting like that's the be all end all of everything, and this huge sacrifice that you're doing. Everything. Now, the fact that she lives in Ethiopia, that is something, but I don't know how much. And I think it's kind of funny considering how big of a wanderlust type person she is. Usually, those people are like more into actually jumping full force into local customs and stuff.
Yeah, she confuses me because I agree with you. For someone who seems like, or was presented as such at the beginning, like someone who's just like a hippie,
Free spirit. Yeah.
Free spirit. I just go where the wind takes me. She seems to be uptight about a lot of like things in terms of living conditions.
Right.
Right. And it's like, you just can't be like that if you're going to be like a free spirit, like backpacking around the world. Like there's going to be less comfortable living conditions than what she's kind of being high maintenance used to. So it's just weird to me that like those two things exist in one person.
Yes. I'm just like, yeah, I feel like if you've like backpacked your across South America, like you've been in a pit toilet before, right? Like I feel like that's something that's like, you should have done it. It just doesn't seem like something she would even consider right now, you know?
I know, right? Yeah. Okay.
All right. So my last one is Kenny and Armando. So it's the morning after the dinner they had at his parents' place, and Armando already feels like he's running out of time to tell, everybody about the actual wedding. So he's going with his mother, and they're looking at garden statues. Now, Armando wanted to tell his mother about the wedding first, since when he first announced that they were engaged, he did it in front of a large group, and his mom said, "You should have told me first." So in actuality, he's going for what she said, but it's probably not a good move to rely on her because despite her promises, his mom, Virginia, never even told his dad that Armando was engaged at all, which seems like it's going to make this communication he's going to have with his dad a bigger lift. She says it's not that big of a deal because it's not like they've decided a date yet. So he's like, well, actually, and he tells her about his plans for a big celebration. She starts to cry about it, but wants to tell him that, even though she's crying, it's not because she doesn't accept him. But doesn't really explain why she's crying, but just that I accept you. So she knows he and her both know now that it's time to talk to dad about it. And Armando is going to have to be the one to tell him everything and just kind of hope for the best. So back at the vacation rental, which I guess is nearby the parents' place, Cassidy is petting Truffles. Old Truffles is still around. And Armando is leaving to go talk to his dad about everything. And it looks like Kenny is coming along for support. So he says that this pattern where his mom is going to be the one who tells his dad basically everything about everything is pretty much how things have been since he was growing up. So he's priming himself in the ride, and Armando worries that his dad will refuse to come to the wedding, which he says would make him uncomfortable to ever go back to his parents' house. So then he goes into his dad's workshop, and the whole thing starts. He sits him down to have a man-to-man talk. So his dad, who's Armando Sr., says that Armando's an adult and can make his own choices, when asked about his sexuality, I guess. But he tries to keep busy to avoid thinking about it. It's not that he doesn't care. He just doesn't like to announce everything he's thinking to the world. So he does end up telling Armando that he's proud of him and he's smart, made his way, and, it's good enough for him. And they both start to cry. It's exactly the thing Armando wanted to hear. He says he wants Armando to remain part of his life. And with time, he may find a place for Kenny as well. So at this point, Armando tells his dad that he and Kenny are engaged and they plan to get married. And the most important thing to him is that his dad is there. So his dad says that he doesn't know right now. He needs to think about it. And there's he doesn't go to lots of things like quinceañeras and stuff. So maybe he won't, but he has to think about it. All right. So I guess my question is, the same question I would have had for the dad. What is there to think about? I don't understand.
I just think he needs time to process it.
Yeah.
It just seems like this guy he just needs time to wrap his head around things, because he doesn't want to be in a situation where he's there and miserable. Mm-hmm. Right? He needs to be in a good headspace to be there. So, I think that's part of what was going on, when the mom was protecting him when they first got there.
Right.
Like he wasn't sure if he was going to show up to the dinner. I'm going to guess. Yeah. And then he shows up to the dinner and he was, in a great mood and he was, positive. And I think he needs to kind of mentally accept that. So I kind of picture that how the wedding is, right? It's like he's not sure he's going to be there pretty much up until he's there. But if he's going to be there, he's choosing to be present and to have a good time and not be like this rain cloud.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this, honestly, this reminds me a bit of my father. Is like, if you gave him the free choice and gave him what would you prefer, you know, how would you prefer to be told, you know, who would you prefer told you? His preference would be, I would prefer not knowing. Like, I would rather not know. And because he even said that, like, he said, well, did you know we were engaged? And the dad was like, well, you overhear things, but I try not to, like, listen. Right. He literally was like, I would rather not know what was going on, and I don't have to go to a wedding, and I don't need to be told about it. And nobody needs to share anything with me. That's OK. That's fine. Like, that's where I'd want to be. And so he's just uncomfortable being forced to make decisions over things he'd just rather not know about. And so I don't know how it is a tricky kind of person to deal with, because you're like, well, you kind of have to know about the wedding that I want you to be at. I can't think of a way to square that circle unless you're asking me to not care about you. And I don't know how to do that either, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has the best of intentions. I do think that he's someone who, you know, knows this about himself. Like, his initial reaction isn't the best.
Right.
And so he just needs time to, like, psych himself up, you know? And so it's just, I don't know. But I mean, what I really appreciate about him, though, is that this isn't like someone who's been hostile towards Kenny.
Right.
Or sorry, towards either of them, Armando or Kenny. He wants to love his son. He wants to accept Kenny. It's just taking some time, and I think he recognizes that. And so I think part of it is maybe even himself wondering, like, am I going to be okay with this by the time you get married?
I mean, I think part of it too is he's just being asked to help and support his son in a way that he was never expecting to do, right? And
Yes,
that's definitely a thing that happens a lot, like here. And I'm gonna transition to it. Is like, you know, he was expecting, well, do you need me to fix your car? I'll fix your car. You need me to build like this thing on your house? I got it. We got it. Like, we dig out the septic tank. Done. We're gone. Let's go. Right. Those are all the ways he was expecting to have to support his son. That to be asked to, I need you to come to this wedding ceremony, is something that is, you know, this, I need you to come to this gay wedding, is just not something that he had spent his life as a father really preparing for. And I feel like it's the same kind of thing you see. I think it's the same kind of thing you see now in, you know, with the pandemic, right? You see a lot of people who are very prepared to protect their family in all kinds of ways. And, you know, they did the prepping, but they were like, what we really need you to do is just wear a mask and get a vaccine. And they're like, well, that's not the way I had imagined protecting my family. I'm not a fan of this.
I thought I was going to have to just make sure there was toilet paper available.
Yeah. I was like,
other paper goods.
Yeah. I have a big truck that can four-wheel across the county if there's a storm to get there. Like, you know, they imagine they were going to have to do things like we see in the, you know, Victor and Ellie segment, right? We're going to have to dig people out, move stuff around and haul. And they're just like, we just need you to wear a mask. And they're like, no, that wasn't what I was preparing for. And so to kind of throw that at them, it's going to take people a while to process that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Speaking of Ellie and Victor, it's 4 a.m. and Victor and Ellie are taking a 4-hour boat ride to Providencia for a supply run. They will be in Providencia for 4 hours. Then they will take a 4-hour boat ride back to San Andreas. They can't stay in Providencia because there's no electricity, and they're only there to deliver supplies to Victor's sister Mary. They are noting how different it looks when they get there, as it looks like the island was burned down and all the greenery is gone. Victor hires a guy on a scooter to take him to a car his friend has lent him and leaves Ellie at the dock. Ellie is describing the scene as apocalyptic and tells us of the smell of gas, sewage, and garbage. She is emotional and is realizing what a sacrifice this is to be with Victor. Victor comes back with the car and they pack up the supplies and travel to Mary and her kids in a concrete house that belongs to Mary's husband's family. Victor tells us that when the hurricane hit, the family was split up and they just weren't prepared. It just got there too fast. Mary is so thankful to see Ellie and to get the supplies. Victor is also thankful that Ellie is there, and it means so much to him for her to be there. He knows that it's not going to be easy, but that this will be worth it. They are then on their way to the other side of the island to assess the damage of their own house, and they need to hurry so they can make the boat back to San Andreas. Victor's home is still standing, and overall it's in pretty decent shape comparatively, other than missing a window or two and the roof coming off. They were pretty lucky considering his mom and uncle's house, who are right, nearby, next door, are completely destroyed. Ellie is a little overwhelmed thinking about living there, considering there is no infrastructure and no medical. She says there is still a lot of things they need to figure out, but she's kind of vague about what those things are. So do you think that now, given the situation, that Ellie will, go back to the U.S. and try to bring Victor over?
Probably. I'm actually a little bit surprised given the scale of destruction on the island, and combined with how few people live on that island, that they aren't just being like, yeah, y'all got to move off the island. We're done. We're not going to rebuild this, And so the fact that it seems to that point to me that I'm like, well, geez, why would it seems crazy that she would stay there, right? It's not much to stay. Not much. I mean, you hate to say it, but there's not much there to stay for.
Right. Not at the moment. Right. I mean, they were pretty lucky, though. Their house did look in really good shape comparatively. I mean, granted, it was missing a couple windows, a roof, but I mean, everything inside looked intact. Yeah, it did. And I guess the issue is more well, how many people are going now to, even if the government doesn't say, yeah, we're not rebuilding your island, sorry. How many people are going to come back to that island, whose stuff wasn't intact and wasn't destroyed? Right. And is that going to be able to make a sustainable community that, is like a 4-hour boat ride from the nearest other island? Yeah. Things like even supplies, right. Are you going to have people, providing food? Yeah. Are you going to be able to have food? I mean, electricity, I'm going to assume, is going to come back at some point. Right. I assume they have to have some sort of power station on the island, or I don't know if they have cables from I don't even know how that works, how they had electricity in the first place. I don't know what they're going to do with all the debris. How are they getting that off the island? Yeah. And so it just seems it's definitely, it's not going to be something that they recover from. Here in the U.S., we can throw trucks and money at it, and it still takes years to recover, right? To fully recover some places. This is just going to take a long, long time. Yeah, and it seems to me that part of the reason why she was moving there in the first place was impatience. Yeah. They considered the whole option of Victor moving to the U.S., and they were just kind of like, well, we didn't want to wait for the visa, so we just thought it'd be easier if, Ellie came over, and, we're just going to do that. And then Ellie was motivated because she's like, well, Victor clearly can't be trusted to be by himself, so I need to be with him immediately. Yes. So it just seems like the situation is just different now. And, it's impatience is not an option for either country that they're going to stay in. Right. Yeah. I mean, I was confused about, speaking of patience, he drove he got on that guy's motorcycle to go get the car. But then they returned the car. They just looked like they just dumped it at the dock. I was very confused about the logistics of his car that they had to get back to his friend. He probably did. My guess is that his friend isn't there. And that's why he used the car. So maybe he gave him the keys. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... but he had to go pick it up wherever it was and hoping it was there. There was a lot of logistical questions I had about it. Okay, so they went and delivered supplies for Mary, but why was she still there? Why isn't she getting off fire attack? I don't know what's going on. It's very, it's all, rough to see, but then I wasn't a huge fan of the way we pretty much just saw it through Ellie's eyes of her just sitting on the dock, gawking at the destruction and not doing it. I was like, oh man, it seems like somebody could have had a spot on that boat that would have came and been helping more.
than you, instead of just being like, oh my God, it's so bad.
At the same time, like, that boat was kind of empty.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's not like people were clamoring to get to the island.
That's true.
All right, so not to
I know, we ended on a really downer, right?
note.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so who was your student of the week?
I know we could always go with it, but I went for Armando for having 2 straight tough communications where he got exactly to the point and had the conversation he needed to have.
I actually went the same way because, you know, he acknowledged that he's never talked to his dad, and that, you know, the first time that his dad kind of found out that he was gay, he wasn't the one to tell his dad. They had a really awkward, silent encounter right after, and nothing was said. So the fact that he's like stepping up and having these tough conversations, and I mean, they're just conversations that are, you know, these are the kinds that like restore your soul, you know, like you could just tell he felt more connected and closer to his dad after having this conversation with him, even though like his dad isn't 100% there.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, but it shows him hope, and it does make him feel closer to his dad, and makes him realize that his dad really does love him, and that he's trying, even if, you know, he's not exactly where he wants him to be right now.
Right. All right. I think we probably went the same way for both of these, because I went with Steven for my class dunce too.
Oh, I did not.
Oh.
I went with Corey.
Oh, I went with Steven
Idiot.
because like that is some bullshit. Like, because he was telling us the whole time, I'm moving to Turkey to marry this woman. And Alina seemed to believe that he was moving to Turkey to marry her. And he's all like, well, we're not like, you're not like ready to get married, are you? And it was like, that's it.
It's like, what did you think was happening? And granted, like, you know, no, not granted. I take it back. Like 90 days, like you have to be ready. Like, okay, being ready now versus 90 days, that's hardly anything, right? Being ready now versus like 3 years from now, that's yes, a lot can happen in 3 years. Not a lot is happening in 90 days.
I totally,
like, what do you think is going to be a shift in your thinking?
Yeah,
here?
I definitely. It's not like 3 months are very, very short, and to come in and be like, I have to decide whether I'm going to marry this person forever in 90 days. And what did he think he was gonna like just show up on day 89 and being like, marriage, please?
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah, make this happen. Let's get the marriage and the visa now. Like, come on, man. So just all dumb, like no planning ahead. Just you know, yanking this girl along, like jerking her chain with that, I didn't know you were ready crap. And so bad Steven. So anyway, Corey.
Yes, my dunce was actually Corey. It's like, how are you so stupid? Like, how are you ghosting Jenny? How are you, you know, like coming back to Evelin? How are you not telling Evelin the whole truth, but running around and telling everyone else the truth before Evelin? That seems like a dumb idea.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh my gosh, you're an idiot. Plus, like, I get it that you think you've moved on, like whatever drama you had with Raul, but Raul is always going to be loyal to Evelin first. Whether he wants to hook up with her or not, he will always be loyal to Evelin first.
That's true.
So,
well, that's funny because my life lesson we kind of already talked a lot about, because it was like, it's bad to ghost somebody that you were in a relationship with. I would argue that it's worse to ghost your mistress. Like, that's
because that shit can come to bite you in the ass, right? She's coming back for vengeance.
Yes.
Like, you're dumb. You got to keep her happy,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. So my life lesson is actually for Steven. His stupid, and I told you before, but I didn't tell you what exactly. I was triggered by Steven on this episode, and it was dumb watermelons. Because when you're in the middle of a serious conversation, trying to make it lighthearted by changing the subject to something totally off the wall and stupid, that doesn't actually work. Like, in what world? Like, I don't know why people insist on doing that. When has it ever happened that the other person has been like, oh yeah, if everything's okay now. Let's talk about watermelons. That has never freaking happened. It doesn't work. You can't just change the subject like that.
I don't even know that he was thinking that deep. I think he literally saw a watermelon and was like, watermelons are good. I like watermelons. Watermelons.
Okay, well then that just means he's an idiot.
It
That's
is.
something completely different.
He is.
Yeah.
I said that in the voice from Idiocracy with it, go am baiting. Like,
yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, Steven.
yeah, he's pretty dumb. He's getting worse every week, which is kind of crazy because he didn't start off great.
At first, I was kind of like, I like this kid. You know, like, yeah, he's a little weird and quirky,
I thought
but
he was gonna be
sweet.
just a hammy guy whose shtick got old really fast, but he's a much bigger asshole and a much bigger idiot than I anticipated.
Oh yes. His stock is plummeting. Every day he's getting closer and closer to the bottom of our power
That's
rankings.
right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, we will be back next week. We saw all of our couples this week, so hopefully we'll see all of them next week as well.
That's right.
Okay,
All
until
right.
then.
See everybody then. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.